roots and happened to find Axela here in Toronto. And so that's where I've ended up today. Axela is an interesting company, founded by a chemistry professor at the University of Toronto, Dr. Cynthia Go, based on diffractive optics technology that she developed in the lab. Again, she was working in chemistry, but had a passion for trying to do some work to address the diagnosis of TB in her home country of the Philippines, and started applying both the physical properties and the chemical properties of what she developed to diagnosis of TB. So if I can digress for a minute and talk a little bit about biomarkers, this is what Axela does in personalized medicine. And we have two technologies that are developed here in Ontario that are kind of fun, kind of exciting. Biomarkers, I'm sure you're aware. Basically, these are things that are measured in blood and tissue, etc., that indicate state of disease, state of biology. They traditionally have been measured independently, so you look at an individual analyte, so you go and get your cholesterol measured, and that's part of the decision process of the physician to understand what he's going to deal with you in terms of treatment. But as we've learned more and more about disease, it clearly is far more complicated than that situation. It takes far more parameters to fully describe it. So we're now dealing with having multiplex biomarkers or a panel of markers to fully characterize disease. But what that's opened up the opportunity is to really customize therapy, treatment, and diagnosis for each individual. So hence the term personalized medicine. And as an example, I'll talk about one of our microarrays in a minute, but here's an example of how that can benefit. So in ovarian cancer, there's various types of ovarian cancer, first of all, which typically are identified by taking a biopsy during tumor removal, staining it, looking at it on the slide, and identifying rather subjectively, what that type is. And there's some small subtypes of ovarian cancer that are tremendously aggressive. So basically, if you have them and they begin to progress, the time to death is typically about 3 months. Well, that subtype is identified very, very clearly by immunohistochemistry. But within that subtype, only about 5 out of the 100 women who have that have the aggressive disease. But there's no way of telling which 5 out of that 100 will have that aggressive disease. So instead, what they have to do right now, because it's the best treatment, is treat all 100 women as if they're going to be really aggressive. Typically, this is a form that occurs fairly early in life, so this means surgery, means chemotherapy, means hormone replacement. Basically means that that woman is not going to be able to have children, it's going to go into menopause early. And in reality, 95 out of those 100 women would have been perfectly fine. There's no way of telling which. But if they don't treat them, 5 of them are going to die. So through the use of personalized medicine, in this case, it's very specific gene expression profiles that I'll highlight, you can now differentiate this. So that's the kind of impact that personalized medicine has. So 95 of those women will get no treatment, no chemotherapy, and will likely go on to lead long lives. So it can have a tremendous impact, and there's more and more examples of that every day. So that's what Axela, the company, this is what we do. We built 2 research platforms, 2 instruments, like you see in the labs up here, for use in basic research or clinical research to basically develop these biomarker panels. But the difference in our approach has been to make them instruments that can also be used for clinical diagnosis. So the same instrument in research as in the clinical lab. And the idea there is to really help make that transition. So if you find a pattern that works to discriminate one type of cancer from another, you're going to be able to, you don't have to redevelop that assay and revalidate it when you move to the clinic. So you can immediately start working with and showing results. It's I thought, since most of us are here to build careers, I thought we'd be interested in how big this market is. So if you just look at the North American market, just for the protein testing and research, so this is really clinical testing, it's about $30 billion. The lesson per year. The lesson to take away is that 24 billion of that is labor. So really, we need far more efficient tools And a big reflection of this is, a big component of this is running immunoassays, Western blots, gels, very labor intensive, a lot of work, and an opportunity for new technologies. And unfortunately, this isn't the case here in Canada in terms of grant funding, but to give you an idea of the amount of funding that goes into research in the United States, here's the 2009 numbers for the National Institute of Health in terms of what their direct funding was of research. And you can see in each of these areas, 16 billion for infectious disease, 14 billion for general clinical research, 8 for oncology, 15 billion for neuro-related diseases. Each of these bubbles is bigger than the Canadian budget, but there's a tremendous opportunity to grow and build a career in these markets. On the diagnostic side, the growth rate's even larger. So here we have molecular diagnostics, most of which is currently in gene expression, but it's moving into panels of protein markers. And you can see the growth here from about 8 billion of actuals in 2006, projected to be about $46 billion worldwide, growing at 43% per year. And the biggest growth area is in pharmacogenetics. And this is really about who is this person, what's their gene profile, how are they going to respond to a particular drug, a particular treatment, and make the health system significantly more efficient. And this has to happen because the new drugs are too expensive to use broadly, plus there's danger associated with them. The protein-based drugs can be extremely expensive, extremely effective, extremely expensive. So insurance companies won't pay for them, and OHIP won't pay for them, unless you can really show there's a need. So the ability to properly diagnose with good gene expression or protein panels and show that that person's going to respond to that drug is very worthwhile. So here's the technologies, and I won't spend a lot on this, but I thought you might find it interesting. Basically, we have two technologies, both flow-through, developed here in Ontario. One is a flow-through chip, which basically allows you to do a microarray in a fully automated fashion and about 5 times faster than on a slide. It's a little chip like this that fits on the end of a pipette tip, so it can be used in sort of standard robotics, and behaves very much like a standard microarray or for either gene expression analysis or antibody panels, etc. Because we can flow things through it, we can make it much faster and much more efficient. The other technology, this is what Dr. Go founded the company on, is the dot-lab sensor. This again is a small disposable molded part that includes all of the optics. I never thought when I was in Dr. Reed's course down in the physics lab that I actually would care about those lights that were flashing around, but apparently there's money in it, so I care now. Although the big step forward is that's the optical bench, all of the polystyrene. So that's the prism, the sample, the sensor, everything within that small component. You can have a look at these afterwards if you're interested. So what we do with these, first I'll talk about this diffractive optics sensor. And I'll go quickly through this because I know you didn't come for a science lecture, but you might find it intriguing. 3 components. There's that little sensor I showed you, the flow channel, the prism, that's our optics, molded into the plastic, and then these capture areas. We can put up to 8 on there. So here we are back to chromatography, in this case affinity chromatography. You knew I couldn't leave it for long. And basically, each of these capture areas, rather than being sort of a homogeneous affinity reagent like a piece of DNA or an antibody or an antigen, they're actually made up of a pattern of lines that form a diffraction gradient. So we actually make a biological diffraction gradient. And that's when illuminated with light, will actually form a diffraction pattern. So there's a little cartoon that illustrates what happens when you illuminate that very specific pattern. To give you an idea, those lines are about 1.5 micron, 4.5 micron repeating pattern. They'll split that light beam into 6 diffractive orders or spots. And this is actually the same technology that's on your